Okay, Tim, are you good? You all connected?
I am good.
Okay, we're live.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the March 18th Diversity and Inclusion Committee meeting. Becca, do you have the statement from the governor?
Yes, I do. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting will be conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance by members of the public will be permitted. This meeting will be live streamed, but will have no option for public participation. To view or listen only, click the live stream link on our Diversity and Inclusion March 18th meeting agenda, which can be found on the Town of Northborough website.
Thank you. And just to do a roll call, so everybody just check to make sure we can hear everybody and see who's here. Mary Leach.
Present.
Deidre Riding.
Present.
Lauren Bailey Jones.
Present.
Sheikha Holland.
Present.
Miriam Ibrahimi.
Present.
Virginia George.
Present.
Becca Meekins.
Present.
And I am Tim Kalin, and I am also present. So the first item on the agenda for tonight is to approve the meeting minutes from our February 18th meeting. Did anybody have anything to add or have any comments on those minutes? No. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved. Lauren.
In a second?
Second.
So a motion's been moved and seconded. Now just a roll call vote for approval. Mary Leach,
Aye.
Deidre Riding,
Aye.
Lauren Bailey Jones,
Aye.
Sheikha Holland.
Abstaining. I wasn't there that meeting.
Thank you.
Sure.
Miriam Ibrahimi,
Aye.
Virginia George,
I don't think I was at that one. I had budget meeting. And I'm actually showing up as being present, right?
No, you were there.
Did I?
Oh,
I thought I
wait, is
missed the meeting.
this the meeting with Joseph Hyland?
No.
no.
Oh, I should
Oh,
probably be
okay.
abstaining as well.
Okay, super. I was present then.
It's okay.
Vote
Right.
to swap.
It was the meeting before that where we finalized.
Oh, okay.
everything. Yeah.
Okay.
And I
Okay,
saw
was present.
I did see the minutes, the one from 2/4, right? Is it? No, 2/18.
218.
Yes, I abstain.
Becca Meekins
Aye.
and Tim Kalin, I vote aye. The minutes passed and they're approved. So the next item on tonight's agenda is survey and the results that we've gotten so far. Just so everybody has an idea, we've gotten 691 engagements, which is tremendous.
Fantastic.
I'm just pulling it up right now. 691 engagements with what's that?
I think it's a 79%.
79%, yeah, 79% completion rate. So that's outstanding. So for most of the questions, we have between 460 and 490 answers. So that gives us a great data set to use to get some really useful insights into to the questions and answers. It was also good to see that a lot of people filled out the demographic information so that we can start tying some of the answers to people's demographics, ethnic backgrounds, genders, even areas where they live, which school they live, and stuff like that, to see if there's a particular area in town where people feel certain ways. So overall, I think it's great. I think the Y was going to share it, and I think we should probably reach out to them, Becca, to see where they are with that.
Yeah, so I don't mean to interrupt you, but
Go ahead.
I talked to Joey from the Y earlier this week on Monday, and Monday or Tuesday, and he had just pushed on Tuesday. They had just pushed out the link via the social media and like the email. I don't know how. He said he definitely put it on their social media. So if it went out on Tuesday, I mean, I would think, people tend to do stuff like that when they see it. I don't know that a whole lot of people would like bookmark a Facebook page and then go back to do a survey. So I'm thinking that like any input we would have received from that means probably would have already happened by now. I'm guessing. I don't know how you guys feel. So, I don't know where we are in terms of closing the survey. Like that was sort of one of our last pushes to get people. So I wanted to talk tonight about if the group was interested in closing the survey maybe Friday so that we could start analyzing results, or if we want to give it another week. I don't know. I mean, the results have been coming in more and more slowly. Fewer and fewer people a day have been taking it, which I think means it's sort of, I'm wondering if we sort of captured the group that we were going to capture. So I don't know how people feel about that.
I think that makes sense, Becca, especially since I don't think we had any other drivers or ways that we were planning to drive folks to respond or engage. So we probably are in a good spot. And if we need to do another one, we know it could be successful at least, which is positive. So.
I think one thing that we could do is make a commitment of if we posted on any Facebook pages a few weeks ago, like tonight, do our last post and sort of have that 24 hours for any last minute respondents. But other than that, I do agree with Shika and Becca. We've gotten a relatively good sample size. So like you said, no one's going to really go back to a bookmarked link.
Okay, so what I will do then is I don't control the town Facebook page, so I will have to reach out to Andy Dowd tomorrow morning, first thing, and I'll just ask him to put something up that says, hey, today's the last opportunity for you to get your reply into the survey. Survey closes, today, end of business or whatever. And then tomorrow evening, either me or Tim can go in and close it. And then Tim, if you, the analysis of the results, that's kind of like your baby. So I don't know how you want to, if you want to look at it, and then if you need our help with stuff, we can talk about that at the next meeting.
Yeah, the only thing with like I agree closing it, if everybody agrees to close it on Friday, that makes all the sense in the world. I'm actually going to be busy with my kids all weekend, so I won't have a chance to look at it. So if that's the case, do you want to keep it open through the weekend just because there's no reason to close it? Because even if we get one or two more responses in over the weekend, then early next week, I'll have a chance to at least download the data set and start taking a look through it next week. I just won't have time to look at it this weekend.
Yeah, I'm fine with Monday, the 22nd too. I mean, it doesn't, leaving it open for 2 more days is not going to harm us in any way, I don't think. So
No.
I think that's fine.
And I did want to just bring up a couple things from the survey. As I mentioned, we did get some negative comments, and most of the negative comments were directed at me, which is not surprising. But I also thought it was important that we have a discussion about it. Some of the comments were, how can you have a diversity and inclusion committee when a white male is the chair of the committee? So like, I understand where people are coming from with that comment. It's not coming from a place of, like, maybe a negative comment is the wrong way to put it. But the work that this committee has to do and the impact that I think long-term we can have on this community, like, I'm fully behind that. And sometimes the messenger is just as important as the message. So I just wanted to let everybody here know that if at any point somebody else feels that way or feels that somebody else should be chair, just please let me know. Like, this is not an ego thing for me to be part of this at all. I don't, I think I just got voted to be the chair just because we're a new committee and at least I had some experience doing this. So I just wanted to share that with everybody. Like, the work of the committee is much more important to me than sitting as the chair. And if you just want to send me an email separately, like, just so everybody is just so I'm open about that. All right.
So Tim, I'd like to say something, and I hadn't really given a whole lot of thought to it, but I'm really sorry that someone had made that kind of observation or either the kind of comment, because, from where I sit, I think the best person to do this is a white male, because if I'm doing it, or one of us who are a female or a person of color, then people are thinking we're being self-serving and doing it just for ourselves or something like that. But I think you bring a different perspective, and you bring a lot of credit to what we're trying to do. So, please understand, I can only speak for me. I'm comfortable with you being chair. I'm comfortable with you leading it. And I just said, let's push on.
Thank you for that, Virginia. Thank you.
Yeah, I really agree with Virginia. And I want to add that I think that the strength of our committee is our diversity. We're bringing, I remember back to the first meeting where we introduced ourselves, and I think I really appreciated all of the different perspectives and roles we were bringing. It's not just what we are on the surface that is embodied here in the committee. And I think that's what makes us strong. And to have someone excluded, that's what we're here for,
Right.
to not be exclusionary. So.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Tim, you're doing a great job, and people are going to find opportunities to do those kinds of things, and we got to let it go. You're doing a great job, and we appreciate having you here very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, it's just important for me to be transparent, and just so everybody knows that there were questions, and that, I don't take them at all personal. I can understand where, like I said, I can understand where they're coming from in a way. But I think it led me to another thought, which is that's another education point and another place for us to share that attitude of diversity and inclusion is for everybody. One thing that I've read and I've thought myself for a long time is it's unfair to put the burden of the work on the people that have been impacted by our history. Like, that's just, You know, like
Mhm.
people of color didn't create the problems that we have. So why would we put all the burden of asking people of color to fix the problem that they didn't create? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So I think like I can I can use my privilege as a white male to help solve that problem. And I think that's a message or an education point that we can make to the community.
Definitely, I was thinking education, communication, that's the part of the work that we're going to need to do. And I was curious to see what was going to come out of Northborough. So this is good. Doing the survey is good because it's going to bring up some of those things that many of us don't know or understand. But I think it points to education and communication.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. All right, that sounds good. I just wanted to, and when I go through the survey results, I'll put together all the comments so everybody can see all the comments. So that everybody can kind of understand or get a sense of where people are coming from in a couple different areas. So I'll start work, like I said, I'll start working on that next week. All right, good. Perfect. So next on the agenda is community listening sessions. Becca, did you want to talk about this?
Yeah, I kind of regret putting this on tonight's agenda, honestly. But I just didn't want us to lose sight of sort of what I envision being the next step in the public outreach phase for us. I do sort of think that after the survey, and it will sort of depend on what the results bear out, but I do think we should talk, and maybe we don't have to talk in detail about this tonight because I think we need the information from the survey to be able to talk about it in detail. But I do want to just keep it on the radar that we should offer some sort of opportunity for the public to engage with us on this diversity matter, and inclusion, everything that we're doing. And I don't, I guess I was sort of thinking like, I'm not really sure what it looks like. Like, I don't know if it's just a like public hearing style where you post it and anybody and everybody who wants to come in and talk about anything and everything can come in and talk about it. I don't love that model only because it lacks structure and things can get heated very easily. And I just, I don't know. I guess I'm curious what you guys think in terms of sort of how you imagine it playing out. Do we invite like a pool of people in, like specific people, or I don't know. I'm curious about what your all's input is about how it looks.
I don't think the Zoom format is the best format to have that sort of conversation.
Okay.
I do get a little bit hesitant. We've seen it with the Board of Selectmen meetings that I think people get a little bit more brazen when they don't have to put their video up and it's just a phone call in, and now they're just talking into their phone and they don't have to look at another person in the face. So I think it just opens up the door to your point, Becca, things can get heated. And if you don't have to look at another person, like the potential for it to get more heated quicker, I think is there. And I also think it's another conversation, like I talked about before, where ultimately like diversity and inclusion to me is about people. It's about people, it's about empathy, it's about listening, it's about understanding. It's just about learning about each other. And I don't like, it's just tough for me to it's more effective, I think, if we did it in person. Now, obviously we have to be dependent on the vaccine, but is it something that we could do in conjunction with the Y?
So I'm curious, so I'm, being cognizant of open meeting law as well as, our limitations with the pandemic. I'm wondering if focus groups could be an area that we pursue, whether it's people that we ask to be part of the focus groups or there's a call for anyone in the community who would like to participate. And as long as we're not breaking open meeting law and not all of us were part of we'd have to have less than a quorum of us as a committee there to listen in. I think that it could be very productive, and there could be multiple focus groups with smaller groups of people, either in person if people feel comfortable, or I think that then having that small focus group on Zoom for people who do not feel comfortable meeting in person, that it makes it a little bit more, face to face. So that sort of addresses that concern, Tim. But again, I haven't done a fit focus group in the year 2020, 2021 with the pandemic. And I do want to be careful about open meeting law. So does anyone have any experience or thoughts with that? Deirdre?
So
Or Virginia?
I think Virginia, you had something to say before. I do have some experience with focus groups this year.
Well, maybe mine is completely different. I guess I would rather wait to see the results of the survey. And once I'd like to see, what some of the comments are, what the numbers are. Once I see those things, then it may make sense. I don't have a problem with focus groups. And I think that's probably, I have advocated for focus groups. I think that's good. But I think before we make a decision on focus groups, we ought to see the data. We ought to get a sense of what we'll be facing, because we may not be prepared for what we may get.
Yeah, no, I agree, Virginia. I mean, I don't want to make any decisions about this tonight. I was just trying to, get a feel for what it might look like, how we might, how it might shake out, considering things like the pandemic, and is Zoom really the best way to do it? And do we invite people, or is it a free for all? Or do we do it with the Y or with the library? I think we're just talking about ideas, really. Lauren, do you imagine?
They tried to do focus groups at the library. I don't know if anybody was involved with that, but it was on trying to figure out how to improve the library, and people didn't come out for that. And that was even before the pandemic, so I think we should do them, but I think that all of us have maybe some pockets of where we have some alliances. Like I have heard you all speak about the mothers group or something. So you have there's some connectivity, and I think that may be the avenue that we use to start doing when we get ready to do focus groups, to use some of those small segments of the population. And the young people group that want to learn about government and everything, that could also be a focus group. Just sort of target some groups that we go and that we deal with.
Lauren, did you imagine that members of the committee might facilitate those groups? And is that sort of how you imagined it would shake out? Okay.
Yes. Yes. I've only been part of a couple, and it was early on in my school committee career. And I believe it was for a principal search. And I don't even know if it was really technically a focus group. So Deirdre, you said that you have experience. So can you tell us your thoughts?
So right at the beginning of the pandemic, let me know. I want to give all the background. Just long story short, I had to set up three focus groups to answer a question. I wrote a script, so everybody got the same spiel each time, the same questions. I did have follow-up questions depending on how the conversation went, but the power of doing them on Zoom was, obviously it was at the beginning of the pandemic, so I didn't really have a choice, but I think the power still exists. We can record it very easily. I know you could do that in person, but sometimes it doesn't work as seamlessly as it does with everybody, static on the screen. And the other thing that worked really well, I think, is that people don't have to go anywhere. So it's really powerful just being able to pop in, 1 minute before, let me join. and then I'm at home when I leave, I think the attendance would be much greater in that regard.
When you have done focus groups, Deirdre, are they volunteer based? Do you reach out to certain populations? How does that work?
Right. So these, I wanted to know something specific from specific people. So I reached out to a group who told me who those people were. So it was like based on recommendation. So I think that's what can happen from our survey. We could see, oh, this demographic was missing. Can we try to reach out to them directly? Is there a way to find out? Or we really want to know about more detail about these responses from these people. Maybe we can invite a group that represents that group, something like that. I like Virginia's idea of using our networks and being a little bit broader, but I think that the survey will really dictate what our follow-up questions are going to be.
Deirdre, do you know if it's customary to have, like, would it be, I guess, okay for us to run focus groups, or are you typically supposed to have someone from the outside run them? Like a non-biased sort, not that we're biased because we're only trying to collect information, but we are on a committee.
Right. I mean, we can have a conversation about our potential biases to, once you call them out and put in place things so that they're not impacting the questions. I mean, it's always nice to have an outside person, but in a way we're outsiders. Like we were charged with this because, you know, I mean, we're inside because we're part of the town, but we're looking at this as researchers in a way, which we have to just put on that researcher mindset of like stepping back and being unbiased. I think we could do it. We just have to write a script and stick to it. Like you put in, it's a structured thing. The more structure we have, the less likely we'll be prone to things that can happen just when you're having a conversation. Like you might have a rapport. I know that I used to do some counseling for students, and there were some students, sadly, based on their identity, I didn't feel as comfortable, and others I had a quick rapport. So they got very different, and I had to really check myself. But if you have a script, like everybody gets this, it matters less.
I think we can do it as well. And I think it would make sense because like you said, we're inside, but we're also outside, and it's our survey. And so I do think we could do it with script.
Yeah, I agree with Deirdre. We would probably be the best to like really run the focus group.
Mary?
I agree. I think a Zoom format will get greater attendance, and in person, people are always so busy, and this reason why they can't do this or do that. And at least if they could pop in for 5 minutes instead of sitting through an entire meeting, I think we might get a better response. If to your point, Tim, about being concerned about people being a little out of hand or whatever, can we ask them to identify themselves? I mean, or would they join anonymously? Like, how would that work? Like, if we invite them and then we send them a link to the Zoom and they introduce themselves, maybe they would be less inclined to get out of hand.
We also set the ground rules. So if there's something that this is a respectful environment, everybody's going to have different opinions. We want them all in a respectful manner. Like we set those. And when somebody is not following that, they need to leave. This isn't the place for you. I think we have a lot more control. And it's like a phrase a paragraph we read at the beginning of the script, and everybody needs to adhere to those. Yeah. And if we want people to be on camera, I know that's a deterrent to some people, and we want to respect that, but I think everybody can follow the ground rules.
So one of the things, and Becca and I would rely on you and Tim to help me with this, but with my school committee, when we have some hot issues and there's 50 parents that want to speak and everything, we set the ground rules and we say, you know, you have to identify yourself and your relationship for the school. You know, I'm a parent, or I'm a teacher or whatever. And we tell them you have 3 minutes. We, you know, give them a time. And when their time is almost up, we tell them they're going to need to wrap it up and everything. But that's because we're trying to get a lot of people through, but we do have them identify themselves. So could we not do that if we did a Zoom one, have people identify who they are and that they live in town?
Yeah, I just just want to add, I think I agree with Deidre on the focus groups. What I was talking, my concern is if we had just an open session meeting where people could call in. That's where I would be concerned about.
Oh, okay.
With a focus group, like I think we would go through and maybe not identify individuals, but look for, like Deidre was saying, looking for people that fit a certain, you know, we're looking for people that live near Lincoln Street School, for example. You know, that could be just one of the things that we find that we want to look for. And we need 5 people. And then when those 5 people call in, they just identify themselves, they get read the rules, and then we just have the script that we go through, and that's that. Does that sound what the process would look like?
One other thing I wanted to add. So I've been trained in a method called Brave Conversations. It's specifically for facilitating conversations about race. If that's something that we would like to do, like get trained, it doesn't have to take very long to make us feel more comfortable as people facilitating those conversations. Maybe that's something, because I understand it's a charged topic just to say, oh, ground rules and we're done. That's not necessarily everything, but I know we could do it. We could just, you know, get a little bit of training.
Do you have you train us, Deidre? Is there a company that you would recommend to train us?
Right. So I guess the question is, do we have a budget? If we have a budget, I would recommend the person who trained me. If we do not have a budget, I would try to bootleg his material.
Okay.
Okay.
If you could send out an email with a link or with that information so that we can take a look at it, that would be terrific.
Sure. I was just going to put it in the chat, but I can't do that. I will send an email.
That would be great.
So
And I did like when the question of budget came up. I could see Becca in the top corner doing this.
Yeah.
I could also ask him if he would do it for us, you know, as a, like, maybe promise of future people in the, like a town thing might come out of this or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's
publicity.
fantastic.
He could use this as publicity. Look, I train these people in Northborough. I can train anybody. Huh. But you know what? I like his contact because maybe what we could do is we could connect with him through, you know, knowing him, and if he uses us, I may be able to use him with MASC, or the Assabet School Committee or something. So maybe, you know, with the lure of potential business, he might do it for us.
It's worth asking, but I think it's it definitely has the potential to put people at ease talking about these difficult conversations.
Okay.
I mean, I would definitely like to have some. I've talked about it a lot, but I've never facilitated a conversation with other people. And Deirdre, I don't want all the burden to be on you to be like the group facilitator. She's gonna run, like, it would be good if we could all share some part of the burden here. So, I mean, I'd love any opportunity to get some training.
Right. I think the biggest part of it is unpacking our own baggage so that we don't get charged in the situation. Like, we have to always remain impartial, and it's harder to do when somebody's saying something you don't agree with. But how do you disagree inside, and then give them the space outside. and that's a skill. So yeah, I agree.
So does anybody know whether or not the cultural grants have been awarded, or
I saw
have we
that they
asked
have.
yet?
Or is it?
They have.
Maybe not cultural grant. There's some community grants on the Northborough page that were awarded.
Yeah, they
Okay.
either are about to do the award or they just did it.
Ooh.
One or the other. I got invited to a meeting to see the presentation for the award, but I'm not sure if it's happened yet. But it's coming up.
Okay. I'm thinking of trying where we can get some money for this if we needed to. Okay.
I mean, I'd say ask him first if he'd do it pro bono. And then if he says no, and it's, Deirdre, I don't want you to have to train all of us, but like, what's the number? And maybe we can talk about if there's a possibility. I mean, so I don't think it's out of the question. I think it just should maybe be our B position instead of our A position.
Yeah. And Deidre, if you share that information, I'll reach out to you separate, and then you and I can just have a side conversation, because I have some ideas. Once I get to learn a little bit more about the training, there may be some other things that I have in my network that may be of value.
Oh, good.
All right, sounds good. Next, update on medium and long-term objectives. We've been going back and forth on this for about 6 weeks now. And when I was just corralling all my notes and everything that we've talked about, I came up with 4 main areas. We have training, we have hiring, we have the consultant that we want to engage with possibly next year, and then community engagement. And community engagement is kind of like we talked about, having the flags at town hall changed, depending on what's going on with the calendar. Events around town, speakers, working with the community affairs to get events put on. Do we engage somehow with Apple Fest? Like, there's a whole litany of things that around community engagement, but instead of that was just one silo, I guess, to put that in. Does that seem to encapsulate everything that those 4 that we've talked about? So if those are the 4, what I'd like to do is, does anybody, to have people dig into those a little bit deeper, to look for options and recommendations so that when we make our presentation to the Board of Selectmen, either the person that takes that on can actually handle that part of the presentation because they'll be more familiar with it and talk through it, or, I'm more than happy to do it if someone doesn't want to do that. Deidre?
I was going to say, I did think about this a little bit. I went back and watched your last video, and it was a really rich conversation before I joined. And one of those brought up, you were talking about the Coalition for Equity and in the school district, and Lauren and I serve on that. And they actually would like to engage with us on, and I wasn't sure how much we could do versus information gather for recommendations. But they mentioned, so they have a community engagement committee. And one thing that they would like to do, the Coalition for Equity in the Northborough Southborough School District.
Okay, thank you.
They would like to create or revive the Lyceum. So apparently, once upon a time, Northborough had these community education initiative, and they invited people like Frederick Douglass and like all of these great orators to come to the town. It's pretty interesting history, but it's a great opportunity for us to use those as forums for educating the community. And then there were other groups who wanted to be involved with that. So for example, the history teachers, there's another like community group in Southborough. So bringing them together in one of our meetings to discuss what this would look like. One thing I know, the reason I say, I don't know how much we can do versus gather, they really want to move, like they want to have one soon. I also, so tangential to that, they mentioned Westboro Connect, who has been doing a lot of work in this space, like community engagement, but also around equity and inclusion. And I'm very interested in what other towns are doing. So I would like to volunteer myself to do some research and just find like, what are people doing to engage the community with the goal to improve like equity and inclusion. So I'd love to do that. And I would definitely like to start with like this Lyceum idea, which I guess that piggybacks on the training aspect, but it really is a community engagement activity.
Yeah.
Sandra, I think it might be good if one of us or both of us sort of almost served as liaisons. And so, you know, reaching out to the superintendent when the group gets solidified, and then sort of bringing that information maybe back to our meeting. I don't know if that sounds like a good avenue.
Right. I think there's been, I noticed the questions were like, we don't know what's going on with that committee. What are they doing? Have they done anything? And there has been a lot of movement, and I'd love to report out on that in terms of, you know, what's happened so far and what's going to be happening, like the direction, but also, you know, bringing in people from that committee to engage, I think would be great.
I agree. I think that's outstanding. I think it needs to be done. I'd love it.
And can we table that conversation for the next agenda item when we talk about scheduling people? Because yes, we need to schedule them. So let's just, when we talk about scheduling other people, let's just, when can we have them in? I think everybody's in agreement that we should have them in. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go. I was just going to say, I know we've talked a lot about sort of like the operational difference between the town and the school, and how the board doesn't have oversight over the schools because they have independent committees, and the, you know, the administration is separate. But I think, you know, and at the very beginning, this committee was like, schools was a thing that we really wanted to talk about. And I think that's great. But I do think that community engagement might be a place where those two things can actually come together fairly naturally. And it will be an easy sell for the board because it'll just improve relationships, which like that's good for anybody in any elected or appointed position. So I actually think that that's like a fantastic way of sort of getting around that like political divide. You know, it's just it's a perfect way to merge those two things. So I think that's great.
Yeah, we can all support each other.
Right.
Yeah, so I think because of that, Becca, you know, I am the representative for school committee. I was appointed by the school committee, and our conversations have sort of, you know, gone away from the schools. So I think that this could be an opportunity for me to act as that liaison. So because of that, I think that my place would probably be the community engagement subcommittee. It would be the most logical place because I'm not here as a resident as much as I am a school committee member.
Right. Okay. So community engagement. Deidre will look into that. Does anybody else have any interest in looking at other community engagement options or want to dig into that any deeper?
Sure, I'm like definitely interested in community engagement, specifically like with youth members of our town. And I think that intersects directly into the school as well.
Okay, perfect. All right.
Tim, do you envision like anyone who sort of is signing up or volunteering to research these topics to be doing any meetings or discussions offline?
I think that's up to the individual's judgment if they need to do that. If it's to gather information, like Becca, there's not an issue with that, is there?
No, I mean, we're not going to this is not us creating formal subcommittees by any stretch of the
Right.
mean, just for the record. We are just, we're each just pinpointing areas of interest. So being that we are not creating subcommittees, if less than a quorum of people were to talk about those things, that would be okay.
Okay. And then I think for the consultant, Becca, I'm going to pick on you for that
Yeah, that's fine.
because that's going to involve a budget, obviously, for hiring somebody, and that's not going to be until next year or maybe 2 years. So,
So I've reached out to all of the communities who I shared their DEI plans with, reached out to all of them to get an idea, to ask if they would share their scope of work or RFP that they put out, and to ask what their budget was. So we can start to get an idea of how much is it going to cost, and based on what we want out of it. Because it can be as little as $45,000 all the way up to $300,000, depending on what you want to do. So I've already started that process, so I'm happy to continue working on that.
okay. All right. That'd be great. Because if we can, like, as you know, if we can make a couple recommendations to the board for, option A, option B, option C, something like that. And that way they can make a decision.
Yeah, we'll give them the bronze plan all the way up to the gold plan, and they can.
Yeah, when we want them to pick the silver plan. So just make the gold and the bronze to influence their decision enough so we get what we actually want.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. It's all about the silver plan. And then hiring, I actually, when I think about hiring, I really think back to the conversation that we had with Chief Liver. And it's not only hiring, everybody understands the hurdles that the community faces in hiring. But it's also having the conversation with department heads about some of their policies. Like the one that I keep coming back to from Chief Liver was their policy on tattoos. And simply reevaluating that policy, does that open the door for people that just wouldn't apply? It seems relatively simple. I mean, and again, it once you get into unions and that area, it gets complex really quick. But when I think about hiring, that's what I think about too.
You mean their guidelines, not guidelines, but the qualifications need to be reevaluated? Is that what you're thinking?
Well, not all of them, but just like we had the conversation with Chief Liver, and we're going to have a conversation with Chief Parenti at our next meeting, when we have those conversations, just asking, are there things that are hindrances to you hiring outside of your typical pool? And if it's stuff that's relatively, or if it's stuff that's outdated, like I think that rule against tattoos is just outdated. I just don't, it may be applicable in, 1990, but it's just not applicable in 2020. It's just the social acceptance of tattoos is just vastly different than it was 15, 20 years ago. Like I think they have to be, what's the right word?
Not offensive.
Yeah, they can't be offensive tattoos, but I still think somebody needs to look at them and make a judgment. But to have just a full sweeping, no tattoos, it seems a little bit outdated. Does that make sense, Virginia?
Yeah, I think it does make sense. And I also think, though, that the state troopers have relaxed their tattoos because I have a person that works with state troopers and all. And I think you can have a tattoo, but you can't have a lot of tattoos and things like that. So maybe we need to talk about those things. And maybe you're right, they need to be updated, because a discrete tattoo someplace wouldn't say someone wouldn't be a good person to work for the town. But it's more than that, though. And when you talk with Liver and try to figure out what's going on, and I think it goes back to the association that we have, rather than just doing. Well, I'll use it. Marlboro advertises, and they don't take people from a certain, people who pass the social, whatever that test is. They don't take people from there. They advertise, and they get a ton of people. We take people who pass that exam and everything. So maybe we need to look at like you say, our practices, and could you do the same? Open it up and not have it restricted to 10 miles or something like that. So yeah, I think it's more than just the hiring. It's looking at the guidelines, the qualifications, and the willingness to go outside of our area, because you're not going to get a lot with Northborough for a police officer that lives here. They just don't, kind of thing. But I would be willing to work with the hiring. I'm torn between hiring and training, but I think I'm pretty much involved with the hiring. So
There's no rule that says you can't do two.
I got you, Becker. Well, I'll talk to you later. I do, and I think you may have heard. I encourage Fred. Fred has been working with Chief Liver as well, so on hiring, and did work with them on the last evaluations and everything. So I think he's going to be an easy one to make progress. His heart is in the right place, really.
Yeah. And I'm very, very 100% confident that we'll hear the same thing from Chief Parenti when we speak with him too. So again, it'd be great if we can find some hurdles that they need to overcome now, that maybe we can help remove or lower.
Yeah.
I have a quick question. What's involved in changing a policy like the tattoo part of the policy? Is that it's obvious it is unique to Northborough? What would be involved in doing that, making that happen? Anybody know?
And Becca, you probably know better than anybody what my guess is, that we would just make the recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, and then they would further recommend it to the department.
Yeah, I mean, those are internal police department policies. So the police chief has control over those policies. So I think that, with the right approach, maybe from, coming from the board, or maybe it's really just a formal recommendation from this committee, I don't know, to the chief and the town administrator, and, you know, these are the things we put together, and we think these are, you know, policy change considerations that you should really think about implementing.
Yeah.
There's no, you know, it's not a bylaw, so it doesn't require a town meeting or anything like that. It's just an internal departmental operations policy.
I think I would definitely proceed with that recommendation. I mean, I have a visible tattoo on my arm, but it's religious. And if I wanted to be a police officer, it would be a shame not to be able to be considered because of that, you know?
Yeah, I think we're all on the same page. That's the low hanging fruit that we've been talking about going after. And I think the radius, the mileage thing is another easy. I mean, we'd have to decide what the right radius is, and, you know, that's determined by a number of factors, but that's another easy, relatively low hanging fruit.
Would whoever is interested in the hiring, would recruitment also be part of that? So not
Yes.
just the hiring process, but how do we get diverse qualified individuals to come and apply to Northborough? So I think that that's one thing that's come up quite a bit as well.
Yeah, it's all a part of the process.
I think it's more of like the bigger umbrella is representation, right? Because it's the recruitment, but it's also the retention of those individuals. If you come here and you don't feel like you want to stay, that's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that reflects very well on our police department is that when the majority of officers do leave, they go on to state police jobs or work in bigger communities. It's not because of disappointment in their jobs. I think it's like a career, you know. You start here and then you get to go work for the state police, which is, you know, the goal of some of the people that get into the work. So, but I do agree with you. It's not only the effort to get people in, it's the diversity and inclusion. It's great if you can get diversity, but diversity is just numbers. If you don't have inclusion, then your diversity isn't all that impressive. All right, so Virginia, you'll look into hiring. I can help you with that.
Okay. Sounds like a deal.
Last time I volunteered to share information about training for bias to eliminate bias in the recruitment and hiring process. So happy to share that at any time. It's nothing I have to do research on. I already have the information. We might have to pull more information about town because this comes from higher ed. So the data that is used is more like about faculty. But if we had like specifics for, you know, any kind of other business, that might help, because it's a data-driven training approach that tells people where unconscious bias comes from in our cognitive processing, and then what areas in the hiring process that are most prone for that cognitive processing bias, and then what you can do, what things you can implement, like rubrics, et cetera, that really mitigate the impact of bias on the process.
Super. I would welcome your sharing that. Thank you.
Sure, could definitely do that anytime.
Thank you.
I'm kind of almost thinking that training, recruitment, and retention are all related. I think somehow. So I don't, you know, I mean, if there's someone that just wants to work on training and doesn't care about doesn't care, but is not interested in recruitment and retention, that's fine. I think it probably makes sense to put those two things together.
Yeah, I tend to agree, Becca. I think when we were originally talking about training, there was thoughts that we'd be training our community to some degree and giving them visibility to different aspects of DE&I. So I don't know if that's still where we want to head, or if we want to kind of split training and maybe it gets bundled up under one part of it gets bundled up under the hiring focus for the internal piece, and then anything that we might want to do that's outward facing, there's almost a different group that's focused there. And I
That makes
personally,
sense.
and maybe that ties into the community engagement, perhaps, but I think that's really interesting thoughts, like kind of figuring out, even as the course of the year progresses and different key events are happening, whether it's Black History Month or Women's International Women's Month, whatever it is, like kind of creating content and programming around that, I think could be really interesting for us to kind of dig into and show like a true plan for the selectmen to react to.
That's a good idea, a good approach. Very good approach.
So I'd be interested in either of those, whether it's internal or the external focus. But I think the training is I think it's going to be an interesting pillar for us to dig our teeth into.
You want to, would you be willing to do the external? Because
Yeah,
I
for sure.
wonder if your background in marketing would be
I'd like that. Yeah,
very helpful.
that'd be great, Tim. Happy to do that.
And I would like to work on the internal.
So when I was thinking through this with the training, I did think there would be an internal piece and an external piece, much like you're talking about, Chica. But I separated out hiring just because I think when I think about hiring, like one of the recommendations I could see us making is a budget for recruitment, for headhunters, for I don't even know what that looks like, but like I could see a budget for that. And that's really not like a training issue. It's really a recruitment and hiring. Now there is going to be, I think, part of hiring, like Deidre was talking about, there's going to be some training to hiring so that people can better understand maybe some of their biases as they go through the hiring process, so they can see some of their blind spots maybe as they go through the process, and that there's a training element to hiring and recruitment that we'll need to take on. But when I think of internal training, that's like town hall, the staff in town hall taking bias training. That's town hall taking inclusive leadership training. They're separate. They're connected, certainly. There certainly is an overlap, but they're independent of each other. At least that's how I was thinking through it. Does that make sense?
I'm tracking with you. I think that makes sense. Yep.
Well, yeah, it makes sense. There's training for hiring, but there's also operational training when you're
Yes.
really being a manager and how you effectively make selections for internal promotions. I mean, but it's also hiring. It goes, it can go hiring, operational training, how you run your department, how you treat your people. Yeah. And then the external.
Thank you for clarifying that. It's hiring, operational, and managerial. Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Becca, I had offered to help you go through that 300+ page attachment. So if you still are interested in kind of dissecting that and kind of getting some of the key recommendations from those communities, I'm happy to still do that. So
Yeah, actually, I'll connect with you because I think I went through one of them today. Granted, there was a lot of other stuff going on, but it took me like 2.5 hours because they're all long and it's, they're so, and what I tried to do was sort of just take out like what are the key recommendations and sort of like what what kind of information did they seek out to get to that point? I think that's sort of like what we need to. So yeah, so maybe we could split them up, and I'll take half and you take half or something, and we'll do that analysis and then put our heads together about, you know, if we were to do this, what does it look like?
Cool.
Awesome.
Can someone just remind me when will we be making these recommendations to the Board of Selectmen?
Go ahead, Becca. I can see your.
No, I was gonna.
Go ahead.
I think it's gonna be January 2022. That's when I think it's gonna be. Do you think it's gonna be something different then?
No, we had we were given 12 months. Or the committee was established for 12 months. I don't think that means, like, if we were to get all of our work done in 8 months, like, I don't think there's anything prohibiting us from going before the Board of Selectmen earlier. But we do have a deadline on the back end of 12 months.
Did we meet in December? Maybe we did meet in December.
If we met in December, so it would be December.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But I am very confident that now that we have a plan and who's going to be looking into things laid out, that the pieces will fall together pretty quickly, and that we can start working on the plan, because it's, besides the plan, there's really no action for us to take. You know, we're kind of limited in that regards. But I do agree, like, getting the wheels turning on, because I think the first recommendation that we're going to make is that this committee needs to be a permanent part of the community. I think that's going to be the first recommendation that we make to the board. I agree with that. I think that this diversity inclusion committee should be a permanent part of the community. So with that in mind, we should get things going with the schools. We should get the reach out with the Y. We should get ourselves familiar with the other boards and committees in town. Like, I think, like, as we're working on the proposal for the Board of Selectmen, we're also thinking beyond that and what we're going to do after that.
The only thing about timeline I want to bring up that I think is really important for us to keep in mind is that if there are financial attachments to the things that we are going to be proposing, we would want to make sure that we gave the boards and committees, the Board of Selectmen, the Appropriations Committee, the Financial Planning Committee, we would want to give those boards the opportunity to opine on any financial considerations that are tied to any of our recommendations. And that process typically starts in the December, January. It's like late fall, early winter timeframe. So, like, we do want to be ready for that date, because we want town meeting in April to consider and to vote on any, you know, if there's capital, if it's a DEI plan, whatever it is, if it's additional funding for recruitment, you know, we want to give enough time for those boards and committees to have those discussions and with us or the board or whoever, and ask any questions if they need to.
That's an excellent point, Becca. Can you find out what those dates are? Like, what, like, if we wanted to get something in for town meeting 2022, when that information would need to be brought before the committees in town? Is it October, November? It is right in that.
Honestly, it depends on what it is that we're proposing. If I think, you know, if it's a capital item, like if it's a big ticket, like DEI plan that's gonna be considered a capital expenditure, meaning it's going to be more than, $25,000, and that takes a little bit longer. But what I'll do is I'll get the calendar, the budget calendar for us, so that we can look at sort of where we fall. But just asking for budget increases, that's easier, because that typically doesn't happen until, it's not formalized until early March.
Right.
Yeah, that's the month we're in. Yeah. But I'll get the calendar, and I'll circulate it so everyone can kind of have an idea of what we're looking at for timeline.
It might be, and maybe this is something to ask the Board of Selectmen. So Tim, I don't know what your opinion is, but in, committees subcommittees or, focus groups that I've been part of, sometimes we'll then come back to the school committee with sort of like a halfway point update, like informational update. That way, we can start to think about things. Like I was on the start time school committee group. And so, we would come back to the school committees and say, hey, here's what we're thinking about. Here's what we've been discussing, just so that the rest of the school committee would understand, okay, will this have a budgetary impact? Will it affect our busing, our busing contracts and things like that. So I don't know if that's something that the Board of Selectmen would expect or would like.
Yeah, each selectmen's meeting, I do give updates on what we've been discussing and the progress that we've been making. So they do get at least brief updates on what on the progress that we've been making. So
I do think it's probably not a bad idea to do maybe like a 6-month check-in.
yeah,
Just to give the board the opportunity to engage, if nothing else, give them the opportunity to engage with the group. It would be good for them to see the faces and hear the thoughts about the people who are actually doing the work. So I think that's a good idea. And maybe we can do that after budget season, when things slow down a little bit.
Yes.
After town meeting. But yeah, I think maybe summer things are usually a little bit slower, so that might actually be the perfect time for us to.
yeah, that's what I was thinking. The like July meeting is usually.
Yeah.
Hey, how you doing?
Bye.
So that might be a good time to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So what I will do is I will just put together a document with what we discussed and who's agreed to be responsible for each aspect, and send that out so that everybody has that. And then if anybody has any questions or feedback or wants to not take on something or take on something else, that we can discuss it then. Next on the agenda, questions for fire chief for next meeting. I've had just a couple of brief conversations with the chief about coming and seeing us on the 1st. So I think he has a good idea of expectations. So I don't know if people had specific questions in mind that they wanted to ask him. I was just thinking I'm much more of like a conversation person, just to ask questions and then ask questions based off of responses and just more conversational. I don't know if there was anything specific that people had in mind.
I think Deirdre had volunteered.
Right.
Volunteered for everything.
I did go through both of our 2 meetings, the one with Chief Liver and the one with Joseph Highland, and those two were so different. So I hear you on the conversational aspect, but a few themes did emerge. So, and it's based on the committee's interest in general. So I think as long as those questions are asked, The rest of the questions are like follow-up questions, but it was basically about the questions about hiring for Chief Liver, the questions about training, and the questions about community engagement. And a lot more of that community engagement and training also happened with the YMCA representative. So I mean, I can share those via email if we want to use the exact questions, but I think the theme is probably better because the question could come up differently in the actual context. But either way, do people think, are there other areas that we want to ask questions in? I have a tendency to want to know, like, if issues have arisen in the past, or like, what is the history? I think Chief Liver ended up giving us a lot of history just sort of as he was talking, but none of that came out as like specific questions that we asked. So I don't know what people think about asking questions like that, but.
Well, one of the things that I did ask Chief Parenti to talk about when he comes is the importance of the new fire station. And he'll be able to talk much more intelligently about the history of the current fire station. But it does have an impact. The current fire station does have an impact on
Our ability to diversify.
yes.
Right.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Yes.
What I also had an appreciation for is that the questions were really tailored for the person. So it sounds like, you know, not everybody's going to have a new fire station coming up. So that's a very tailored question. Are there other very tailored, like, I mean, when I think about the fire department, they're coming into my home. Like if I have, they're the paramedics, they're the first responders. So are there questions specific around that we want to ask? I don't know what they would be, but that's what I think of them as. But is there something else?
No, that's a good, I've never thought of that angle before, but that's very interesting. That they're coming into your homes.
Like, I don't know, are there things that they do specifically to like engage people, make them feel comfortable? Is there like a specific protocol that's equitable and inclusive that they employ already? I have no idea what paramedic training is like and how you go about ensuring that biases don't enter into that role.
I think that would be an interesting question. I'd be interested to hear what the response, because I don't know either.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I honestly don't know. And I'm actually kind of mad at myself that I can't think of something right now, but I do think that there's, you know, I think we should ask the chief that question, because it's a good question, and maybe he knows it. I'm wondering if there's like a level of empathy when you're learning it's a medical position. You're tending to somebody's, and police to a certain extent, but more so with firefighters, paramedics, EMTs. And, you know, is there an empathy piece of that training that, you know, is there for firefighters, but it's not there for police? And is that part of the disconnect? I don't know. But I'm sure that the chief can give us some background on, like, what is the training? What does it take to become a certified EMT paramedic? What does it mean? Because not all firefighters are EMTs, right? So we happen to run an ambulance service out of town. Not every town has a town ambulance service. A lot of towns contract with a private company to provide ambulance services. So we have like the unique ability to have a lot more control over how those interactions are happening in the house, you know, or wherever the response is needed. So I think that's an interesting. I would like to be able to give the chief something. I know, Tim, you said you talked to him, but like if we could give him something that says, here's just a general idea of what, how we think the conversation might go. I think that might be,
Yeah. Well,
helpful.
I think if we were to share, maybe not questions, but topics,
Yeah.
I think hiring, and that, hiring and recruiting, retention, I think is an important point. Community engagement. I know just from my own experience, how wonderful a job they do with community engagement. They really do go out of their way to, I can think of at least a dozen examples of those guys just going out of their way to positively engage with the community. So, but community engagement, and then the topics about training.
I think what you said, Tim, the topics about training is sort of twofold. So Deidre, you were talking about, if this person is coming into my home, what do they need to know about me and my culture and my background in order to effectively engage with me productively to save my life potentially. And then also when it comes to the medical care, there's so much out there about how minorities typically get subpar medical care, and why is that? So, talking about that as well, I think is really important.
I think though also, when you think about the fire department, they do more than I think we know. And so we may want to ask if they would share some of the things that they do. Because I remember when we first moved into our home here, our smoke detector, the CO2 thing wasn't working or something, and somehow the alarm kept going off. And they were very nice. They came out one night and, went through the house, assured that we were safe and everything. So, I mean, they do things that people may not know. And I think 2 weeks ago, they did a parade around our neighborhood for a birthday or something, And because we were in here and Fred, my husband said, "Oh, I think I see red lights." I said, "Well, we saw it speed by, so something's happening." And then we realized it was just a birthday celebration for an elementary school kid. So maybe having them share about some of the things that they do that we may not know that they do. I think the second one is when you talk about the potential new fire station, that may be a little more controversial. And I don't know if we get to have him to talk about some of the pluses and the minuses, because I don't know if you all have seen the plan. And the plan, they should sleep there for all that we're talking about, the showers, the gym equipment, and all those kind of things, which will run it up. And then you want to ask, well, why would you be across from Dunkin' Donuts? How the heck are you going to manage that traffic getting in there in the morning? And if there's a fire, those are the things I sort of worry about. Are they going to put a light up there or something? But yeah, maybe talk a little bit about the expectations with the new fire department.
Yeah, I don't think the conversation about the new fire station would be actually about the new fire station in a way. It would be like, these are because the current fire station does have some real serious shortcomings as
I know. And I guess the other thing, did you know you could have meetings at the fire department? Did everybody know that?
What do you mean? Like they have a conference room?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Not now, but
They used to. Yeah, you used to be able to, because we had so many, well, not we, but there were so many different committees, and they wouldn't always have places to meet. The library would be full, then you could meet over at the fire department, you could meet here and there. So, I mean, there are a lot of usage that you may be able to share with us that we may not have known, and potential use that we may have in the future when we open up.
One thing that we haven't brought up that came up with Chief Liver is policies. Like if they saw room for like things that maybe are outdated and aren't working for equity and inclusive recruitment.
It's a good
Yeah, I
one.
think they have the 15-mile, fire department has a 15-mile rule too. I don't know if it's mass general law or if it's local,
Yeah.
if it's set local. And sometimes it's mass general law and that we can't get around that, but I think it's a question we should ask. Definitely. I don't think they have any tattoo policies that I know of, but you can ask. Okay, I will,
Oh, one last question. Lauren,
Yeah.
well stated. I liked all of those questions. We didn't ask about sort of their version of internal training. So like, do they have kind of training to how to treat one another?
okay. Anything else we think we want to ask? I mean, we can, if things come up that night, obviously we can ask. This is just to sort of give him a general idea of what to, you know, what to expect. So I think
Yeah.
we've got a good list here. So
I like it. Becca, will you share that with him?
yes, I will.
Thank you. All right, next on the agenda, future guest. I went through all the boards and committees in town on the website and just picked out 5 committees that I think we should have in as guests. And then obviously the discussions we were having about the schools and setting those up. And then I don't know if anybody else had any other ideas about other guests. The boards and committees I thought of were community affairs, excuse me, the cultural council, somebody from the library trustees or from the library, Parks and Recreation Commission, and the planning board. The planning board is the other elected board in town, so I think it's important that we have somebody from the planning board to get their input. They also have a lot of input with the master plan, so I think it would be important to have a conversation with somebody from the planning board. Becca,
When you were when somebody was talking earlier and they were talking about the history, I think the Historical Society
Historical
might be a good
Commission's a really good one.
to have come in and talk to us, because they can talk about, you know, a lot that would help us to understand the history of Northborough and some of the things that we used to do that we don't do anymore. I'm not sure if that was you, Deidre, or Lauren, that you were talking about something.
We were talking about the Lyceum.
Yes, I think they would be good and could tackle that issue.
Yeah, they'll have a ton of information. I mean, I've gone to some of their meetings. Like, there's an archaeological site in Northborough. There's a native burial ground in Northborough. Like, they're just a wealth of knowledge. So we should definitely tap into that.
Yes.
And I don't know if you said senior center, council on aging.
Senior center.
I'd love to have Liz, the senior center director, and just to talk
And
about
Adrian, it would have Adrian as well.
Adrian, yeah, Adrian would be great.
Yeah.
Okay.
As part of the schools, were we thinking of speaking with the superintendent or no? I didn't know if that could be a potential option to get that more holistic view across the board.
Right. I was thinking about him as well. And it seems like Rhoda Webb is kind of heading up the coalition. So maybe them together, or at a different time, somebody from the they have a subcommittee on community engagement. So those committee members maybe.
I think that would be a great idea.
Is that possible? Based on, I
Well,
know there's
they've
like a
already talked
pause. So.
about engaging us. So I think it's on their radar.
You're talking about the committee, right, Deirdre? The committee?
Right, but Greg Martin now attends and kind of presides. Well, Rhoda presides over the meetings, but he's always there too. So
Okay.
I think they definitely have the bird's eye view. They're working with a group of consultants. They've been working with them for a while to kind of, I think actually probably the rollout of the coalition is part of their engagement with those consultants, DEI consultants. So.
Awesome. Okay.
I'd love to try to connect with the schools after Dave Parente, after the fire chief comes in. I would love if he could be our next targeted guest. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yes, I agree with that.
Okay.
Lauren, can you try to schedule that? Is that something that you can?
Yes, I can definitely reach out to both Rhoda Webb, as well as Greg Martineau. And just to confirm, our meeting dates are pretty much the first and third Thursday overall.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so that gives us 8 guests. So if we do the school committee, not the school committee, but the committee from the school and Greg, do we want to double up guests? Do we want to, what I would like to avoid doing is having a guest and then a meeting like we're having now afterwards, because the time can get a little constrained. But I think if we did a meeting, we could have 2 guests, because if each guest is 15 to 30 minutes, we could have 2 and be done in an hour.
And then are you saying like the following meeting sort of get the rest of our business taken care of?
Yeah, so have like the first Thursday of the month be for guest, and then the third Thursday be for like business of the committee. You know what I mean? So the third Thursday recap the conversation, and then have conversations like we're having tonight. You know, see how everybody's doing on their pieces of the proposals and anything else that's come up.
That sounds good.
I like that. I am still concerned that Hamilton hasn't been able to participate. And I'm wondering if, you know, if he will be able to participate. And Becca, were you able to connect with either him or figuring out a different time to maybe meet for our second meeting of the month so that he can be an active member?
Yeah, I did talk to him, and I'll reconnect with him. But last time we spoke, he told me that Thursdays, the schedule had changed and that he thought he could make Thursdays work. So that's sort of why I stuck with the date, because he had said I don't know if he just tonight was a one-off, maybe something came up, but I can reach out to him just to confirm that it's not going to be an issue in the future.
Awesome, thank you. It would be really great to have his perspectives, especially, Tim is our only guy on the committee, so it'd be great to have another guy's perspective as well.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
All right, so we'll line up. Lauren will work to line up the schools for. I don't know what the date is, but it's coming quick. March.
So it would be the first meeting in May.
In May.
that-
Yeah,
Oh,
so the 6th.
Yeah.
Okay.
6th.
And again, we might have to be a little flexible. He probably goes to, I don't know,
I mean, if
15 meetings a week. It's
Yeah.
my guess.
Yeah,
But if I maybe give him a couple of dates to work with in May, hopefully one of them would work.
yeah.
Okay.
And then Becca, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just reach out to you offline about setting up the times for the other boards and committees.
Yeah, I think there are gonna be some people that it makes sense to bring in together, just because of
Yes.
the nature of what they do, so we should, yeah, we can talk about that offline.
Yeah, and then we could just set that up.
Okay.
It's and everything else. Okay. All right, that sounds good. So that's that. Any new business? I did have one thing to think about. Is there something that we want to do to show support for the Asian community in town with everything that's going on in the country right now around the Asian community and the violence and the deplorable actions that are being taken against them? I didn't know. If we wanted to have a conversation about if there's something that we as a committee could do to show support.
So this is when I think the Lions Club signage in the center of town would be a perfect place to express thoughts and sympathies and prayer or whatever the event might, need for support.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I like that. Saying something like like we support the Asian American Pacific Islander community, or just shorten it to we support the AAPI community on that sign would be impactful.
I think it might be good for the committee to put something out, like,
Mm-hmm.
like from us, a statement, or I mean, whatever, however we want to do it, but something that's from, just because, I mean, I read a lot of the comments on the survey already. I know I shouldn't have, but a lot of them were like, what are you doing? Like diversity and inclusion committee? Like, I didn't know. And like, I see no leadership. So I think it's not that it's a PR opportunity for us, but like, just so people know that we're here and we're listening and we're paying attention to what's going on, I think
Yeah.
there's value in that.
I agree.
Would it be a good
understand-
idea?
Go ahead.
I was just going to suggest maybe we use our good friend Liz to put an article in the, in our paper just to say, we're aware or something about our support for the community. Just a brief article, or that we are doing, as a diversity and inclusion committee, we are looking at, want to express our something, I don't know. Tim, you're good at this. And just to write a brief article, no longer than maybe a paragraph showing support or understanding, because I heard on the news today that one of the speakers on the Today Show said that the mere fact that we're addressing it and being aware of it was helpful to the community and lend support to what they're going through. So I would just say maybe just do a couple of, a paragraph or so and put it in the paper as a statement from us.
It's a good idea. Okay.
Do we want to use this opportunity to, I guess, be a lens for education at all in terms of, compiling resources that people can use, whether it's, influential Asian American and Pacific Islanders who are on social media, articles to read, or do you think that the statement would have power being a statement itself? So like, are we looking to show solidarity and support? Are we looking to educate? I guess that's my question.
I really like that idea, Lauren. I think we can definitely include a statement, but I think it would show that we actually do care about this if we include an educational aspect of this, even like you said, people who are on social media or some articles. I think that would be great.
I do have some that I was given today that I could definitely share with the committee.
Yeah, that would be great. All right. That sounds good. So we can reach out to the Rotary about the sign downtown. Reach out to the Patch about getting an article of some sorts in, and we should include some educational materials along with the statement of support and solidarity with the Asian community.
So who will be reaching out to these folks?
That was my next question, Mary. You beat me to it. Does anybody, I've met, God, they always slip my mind. The couple that runs the Rotary.
Oh, Pat and I know you're talking Pat and geez, yeah. Patricia,
I can see him.
I mean, it's a husband and wife team.
Yes.
And yeah, Skip Doyle.
Yes.
Pat and
yes.
Skip Doyle. Yeah.
Virginia knows everyone.
Been here too long. I actually have their contact information if you need it.
Yeah, if you can send that to me, I'll reach out to them and ask them. Lauren, if you want to share, if you could send those articles, that would be great. Miriam, if you have any ideas on that, that would be awesome too.
Who wants to take a stab at writing a statement?
I'm more than happy to do that.
Okay. The only thing is, timing is not an issue, but in 2 weeks, it could be something else. Doesn't make this any less important, but the speed at which things change in this world is unbelievable. So I really don't want to wait until the next meeting for all of us to get together and approve something and then send it. I'm just worried that the moment will have passed. And I don't want to miss the moment. So is the committee comfortable with handing over the reins to Miriam and Tim or whoever to sort of piece this together and put it out without coming back to the group?
Fine.
I am.
The Lions Club sign could be very simple, just our thoughts and prayers with the Asian community.
Yeah, I was talking more about the article, like the statement and the education if we were to send that and post it and send it to the community advocate or whomever.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, I would be comfortable with Tim writing it, but the other thing that if other people weren't, that if you did a draft and sent it to us and people can give you feedback and and if they didn't, then go with it, set a timeline for feedback with it and just do it that way. I'm not sure if the Lion will put that statement up, but it's worth reaching out to them.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So my recommendation is Tim write the article, send it to us. We look at it and say yay or nay, or make whatever suggestions that we have. And if we don't get it to Tim by the deadline, it goes as he submitted, as he sent to us. Would be my recommendation.
Would it help you to see statements that have come out by others? I received one yesterday. I could share it.
Yeah, that would be great.
Can you share? Hold on.
Yeah, I'll send that.
I received 1 or 2 today as well that I can send.
I received one too, though I don't think I can share it, but they did have some great resources and I'd be happy to share that too.
Yeah, that would all be very helpful. Virginia, do you know Liz Nolan?
Sure.
Okay.
She was my publicity person when I chaired the 250th anniversary year. So she did all my articles. And Skip did my pictures for the town. He's a photographer.
Would you mind just shooting Liz an email or something asking her if we can send her over an article for the next edition and when she would need
Sure.
it?
I'll touch bases with her tomorrow and I'll email you back.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
I was gonna say, Tim, if you want to make a document or something and share it with me, I'm happy to help you with it in the
Okay.
next day or two.
Perfect. Yeah, that sounds good. All right. Anybody have anything else? No? A motion to adjourn?
So
So moved.
moved.
In a second?
I'll second that.
All right, just a roll call vote. Lauren,
Yes.
Mary,
Aye.
Deidre,
Aye.
Chica,
Aye.
Miriam,
Hi.
Virginia,
Aye.
Becca,
Aye.
and Tim. I. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Very good meeting. Thank